Hello, friends, and welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast. Chris and Stephen here of the Purple Mountain Spiritual and Wellbeing Centre, and we're here on this particular episode to discuss a very important subject, and we're going to delve into the knowledge and the experience that Stephen has.
That's amazing, yeah.
And what we're going to, the topic of this video is channeling. And so we're going to be talking about aspects of trance mediumship, channeling spirit, connecting with spirit as well, because channeling isn't the only form of channeling. There can be many other ways that we can channel spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of different ways of channeling spirit through mediumship. When you do tarot cards, angel cards, you know, there's so many people out there that are channeling the angelic realms, that are channeling connecting with different frequencies, different vibrations. So this is the beauty of this type of spiritual work, is that it is so diverse, and people draw inspiration from different types of vibrations in the spiritual realms.
Yes, we're going to delve into, I've got some questions for you.
Amazing.
Roles reversed today. But I feel the best way to start is that your experience in channeling or trance mediumship now spans many years, actually, and began in the home circle that we were introduced into this work into, really. So it'd be a good start, I feel, to the podcast to start into that and how you felt at that time as you were beginning to experiencing things. You come into this home circle and not really having any expectations of what will come, perhaps feeling areas of clairvoyance, and then what happens from there?
Well, you've asked me loads of little questions and sort of delving in really. It's interesting because our spiritual journey really started together.
Yeah.
So we experienced a lot of things together, but then also very separate in terms of how we developed and how we unfolded into that home circle. And I think that's a really, really important point to make, really, because any kind of advisement, you know, if anybody listening to this podcast that wants to get into any form of channeling or working with spirit, is that actually in a home circle, which was run by two very close friends of ours who created a safe space where ultimately we just sat. And I think that's important to remember. There's something that I'm very passionate about, is just find that opportunity, you know, committing ourselves each week, coming each week, just actually sitting and expecting nothing, and just sitting in a safe, loving environment around the table, learning to meditate, sharing knowledge, which has been an integral part of my foundation. And I know it's been your foundation as well, where we just learned a lot about ourselves, learned a lot about energy, sitting, asking questions, being curious, which has been part of my self-development, which has been an integral part. And also sort of, you know, when I first sat, I can't talk about your experience, but I remember when we got invited for the first night to sit in a home circle, and Anita, a lady who ran the circle with Roy, she was the trance medium.
Yeah.
And obviously they explained to us a little bit about trance, but when we first went, I didn't go in, nothing it prepares you for your first experience. And when I sat there, I was so scared, but within the space of 2-3 minutes into the channeling, which was Anita was channeling a spirit guide called Joaquin Tonka, a Native American Indian, within the space of 5 minutes, it just blew my mind. It blew my mind open, it opened up my heart. And it just felt, you know, looking back now, it just felt so normal. It felt so natural. It felt like I come home. And that's the beauty of when people, true authentic trance mediums, it's not as much as about, you know, here's your mother, here's your dad, this is the evidence that we're bringing forward in a clairvoyant way. It just felt right. It was a knowing that this is where I need to be. This is where I feel really resonating. And I just felt safe and great. And that was sort of the starting point, really, of my journey. It just felt like I couldn't get enough. I wanted to come every week.
So just as we talk about that early experience, which I remember very fondly,
Yeah.
is what sort of just talking as you as an individual at that point, what do you feel you were able to receive from that experience of being in that lovely container in which that work happened?
Well, on a self-developing side, I just felt that there is something more out there. I felt I wasn't alone. I felt that I didn't need to search anymore. I felt like this felt right. It just felt that this was the place that I need to be at that time. I just felt that everything fell into place. Things just opened up for me. I started questioning things for the first time. I become aware of myself. And it was incredibly exciting as well. That I think that's important to remember as well, that, you know, I know that there is a very serious part of the work, which we'll be getting to later on, but also at the very heart, it is still exciting. It's amazing that, you know, that I'm sitting here, and it is a privilege. It is an honor. It sounds dramatic. It isn't, but I felt this is amazing. I'm sitting here, I'm talking to spirit. And that really opened me up in such a beautiful way, which I have to pinch myself and remind myself. I never would have thought that, you know, I'd never thought at that point that I would ever be anything apart from just being Stephen. I never had no ambition.
Yeah.
Because I was just happy just being a sitter.
That's the best way to be.
Expect nothing. And that's really a big part of a lot of the work now.
Do you think that's something that's been a little bit lost? Because I remember for myself and that early experience of coming into a circle and just feeling actually honoured to just be there, not for any expectation, just to be honoured sort of to have come home.
Absolutely. And I think the problems that often arise with people is that ambition is good. A lot of people are tapping into now more than ever their divine purpose.
Yeah.
We never talked about that. Even when I started my work, I was just happy just to be me. Maybe those questions were never asked, so we never received those answers. But ultimately, just come into anything with no expectations and allow things to unfold naturally within yourself, and allow that higher self to really come out, and also let spirit guide you, let spirit support you. We're working together with spirit, and spirit know when you are ready, and you know when you are ready as well to unfold those gifts, if that's channeling, if that's mediumship, or if that's physical, if that's trance, whatever that might be. Allow yourself just to sit and just to be. I think you did a channeling not long ago, and it really resonated with me that in the modern spiritualism, where they talked about automatic writing, and there was just sat in a home circle above a shop, and they just sat. They didn't expect, the new spirit were there, and they were guided by spirit. And I think that really resonated with me, because people have too many expectations now. And really, at the very heart, you can only be you. You can only unfold something that's within yourself. You can't be somebody that you're not. And that's where I feel there's a lack of authenticity now in the work, because people are looking at others for inspiration and guidance, which is fantastic. Always do that. But you can only be you. And when you work from your true self, that's when your true gifts unfold. Yeah. That's where the true channeling really comes up. So that's where your passions are.
So really, very much going with the flow and not be driven by the ego, really, by that part of the ego that wants to expect, that thinks we should have things, and just going with the flow. But what I'd like to sort of jump forward is, I know you touched on Anita's work, so sort of fast forward many years, and when Anita passed to the spirit world, which is a very uncertain time for that circle at that time, because you not only lose a very important friend, but also the communication has completely changed overnight. What is no more for whatever reason, and so during that time there started to be changes around yourself, which started to develop. But how could you explain that to everyone? So in this circle, we're meditating, we're sitting, and then what are we feeling from there? What were the feelings you were getting?
Well, obviously at the time, you feel very different at the time to actually looking, you know, if I'm reflecting back now, it was a massive change, and everything that's happened was for the circle's highest good as well. We've got to look back and trust that spirit knew what they were doing. They knew something was going to be developed, and it had to be developed naturally and organically. And yes, you're right, Anita was the main communicator, and she channeled each week. And when that was gone, that felt sad, but also it was a change. We should embrace the changes that are happening.
Yeah.
And I remember Roy saying, which was absolutely right, we're going to give it a year. We see what's going to happen. Now, at that point, anybody that's listening and want to know about the story, about my story and Chris's story, is that I was already at that point, a couple of years prior to Anita's passing, I was already developing in trance and channeling in trance, but not to the point of the work that I'm doing now. It was still very early days. It took me a very long time to trust myself, trust what I was receiving was actually coming from spirit. And that's a big thing that I had to battle. I have to say that was a big thing I had to battle over the years, is that doubt that I had.
I think that's an important subject to touch on, actually, because a lot of people who are experiencing any form of overshadowing or early connection with spirit, quite often they'll be concerned, oh, everybody's going to think it's all about me in the group. I don't want it to be all about me. All these thoughts of the mind come in, don't they? And that can actually put off a lot of people. So it is that's almost a rite of passage, that learning.
It's part of initiation. It's part of building your trust. Ultimately, at the very heart, you have to have 100% trust when it comes to yourself and to spirit, and know that what you're going through is right. You've always got to keep, humility. Of course, you've got to keep yourself grounded, but coming from the perspective, also from the external side, having the right people in your group, you'll have somebody in circle that will, whatever circle development group, and you're developing trance or you're developing as a medium, that really have the knowledge and the techniques to really empower you, to hold that space for you, to talk yourself through those challenges.
So sitting with the right people.
Sitting with the right people, having the right people that really empower you, and also to openly talk about those feelings. And I remember, I had doubt. I questioned things, when I was, is it me? I had obviously what was being channeled was right. It was correct, but I still had those doubts, and I scratched my head and thinking, oh my God, is this in my head? And it is a massive thing that people do go through. And you're right, it is part of the initiation process, but it's just part of the process. And, I have to say, I've built such a strong connection and relationship with spirit that I do trust 100% spirit. I do doubt myself sometimes still now, but I've got to have that faith in the knowing that what is being channeled is right. It is coming from spirit. It is coming from the source.
Do you think, in a way, what comes to me now, we talk about the rite of passage and knowing ourselves more, so that doubt sort of dissipates through, especially who you're sitting with as well, that small amount of doubt, in a way, that you say you still have, is almost healthy in a way, because it's that questioning, still continuing to question and not just accept.
Yeah, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think questioning comes from doubt. Doubt is probably an aspect, probably from the ego.
Yeah.
But I probably think it's something that I feel incredibly passionate about, and I do a lot of writing on, is that inner healing work. We've come to really deeply respect that, because I always say, anybody that wants to do any form of channeling, do that inner work on yourself. Find yourself, who 100%. You are, know who you are, stepping into that inner power, in that inner knowing, learning to listen to the body, learn about your fears, learn about your traumas, know what energies you're carrying. And when you do that inner work, and it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be too deep, you have that understanding of who you are. And for me, that grounds and anchors, really, that becomes your foundation, even before opening up to spirit, even before wanting to rush into channeling and doing trance and doing physical, is learn about yourself. And I know a lot of the old pioneers worked in that way as well. And this is why sometimes people are impatient. I know there's a quality that I've had to learn, be patient. And that's something that, looking back now, sitting in a home circle taught us. is don't expect nothing. Can you sit there each and every week when nothing happens, just sitting in the energy of light, sitting and listening, sitting in your energy and expecting nothing? And I think they are some of the, and sometimes that can take, you know, we sat in circle. I think I sat in circle for 6 years before anything happened to me. And unfortunately, there are a lot of places out there that create these spaces after 6, 7, 8 weeks and say, well, that's who you are now. You're a medium, you're a trance medium. And I'm not coming from a perspective of judgment whatsoever, but it takes time, it takes devotion, it takes dedication, sitting in the energy, learn about yourself first before opening yourself up to energies that you don't understand, because that is your foundation, that is your grounding, that anchors your energy to this earthly vibration, because at the end of the day, you are a soul in a physical body. And then take that next step and learn about how to master energy, how to experiment with energy. And we did a lot of that when Anita passed away. The circle transformed and I started channeling Albert, is where we stepped into the next phase of the circles work, which was all about, right, we've done that, a little bit of that inner work. We're here now to experiment. And we did loads of amazing experiments that really taught us about what energy is around us, above us, below us. We learned about light, we learned about dark. And that was part of the initiation process. And that's an important word, because life is initiation. Life is your teacher. You are your greatest teacher. And those experiences will help you guide through when you do start developing as a trance medium or physical medium or psychic or a clairvoyant medium. So it's just part of the amazing journey and process.
So what sort of confirmation could be a funny word, but I believe that everything is confirmed naturally when we have an experience. So there'll be something that happens after or even prior sometimes that affirms what we've experienced. So what kind of confirmations have you had or received over the years that have affirmed your knowing in who you're working with and what's happening?
Well, you know, going back just a minute, what the question you was asking before is when I started working in what I call a deeper way. And it's important to mention this because when you first start out, there'll be lots of different guides behind the scenes, sort of coming in, stepping out, altering their frequency, seeing if you can gel with them. You're altering your frequencies. You've done that inner work. It's a partnership. You have to do your 50%. Mm-hmm. And as you're stepping in, it was Albert, one of the first I don't know if you agree, it was the first sort of teacher that wanted to work with me. And also I wanted to work with him. Remember, that's important as well, that it wasn't just spirit and giving up control. No, there is no giving up control. It's a partnership. It's a relationship, a union between my soul and that other soul. And I feel so at that period and the early days, he was coming through and I still had that doubt. And I remember questioning, thinking, why would Albert work with me? Why would he work with me? And I did doubt. But then we realised that the day when he officially come through, we found out a couple of months later, it was actually his birthday. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We found out that it was his birthday. So that was like a synchronicity. That was like a spirit sign. And then about 3-4 months into it, I said to Spirit, I really need to have a confirmation here. I'm really doubting. And I remember I was living with you at the time, Chris, and I had such a powerful dream. And it wasn't a dream, it was an astral memory. And it was this astral memory sitting in an attic, lying on a bed, and the beautiful light shining through this really circular window. And I can visualize it right now. And this is 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember Albert sitting at the edge of my bed, holding my hand, saying, Stephen, I am working with you. There's no need to doubt. This is something we both come back to do. And I felt so emotional. I thought, and the light that was beaming from him. And when I woke up, I sat up in bed. It was about 3 a.m. I couldn't get back to sleep. It was that profound.
Yeah.
And it was that experience that sealed and affirmed that what I was actually channeling, who I was working, was actually that person. And really, it didn't matter if other people believed it or not. What mattered was me.
Yeah.
Because to skeptics, there's never enough evidence.
Yeah.
People doubt, people question, which is their right, which is absolutely amazing part of the human experience. But
I suppose if the difference is once you gain that knowing that irrelevant of opinions, they're not going to really affect what you're doing. It's very solid.
Yeah, because when you're listening to other people, in a way, and this sounds really strange by saying this, is that you've got to stop caring what other people think.
Yeah.
You've got to be selfish, and you've got to think only what you believe in yourself. Because when you start believing other people's opinions, it pulls you from inside of yourself, outside of yourself. And ultimately, it is actually belief systems. When we talk about that inner work, I don't want to go too deep onto that, but when we do that inner work, it is actually belief systems that actually hinder our connection with spirit, because it is false belief systems. And we call them false belief systems because they are limiting belief systems, because they limit our growth. And that's why I've changed my stance on what the word connection is, because we are always connected. It is our belief systems that block our connection.
Yeah.
The minute we dissolve our false limiting belief systems, we realize spirit have always been there. And this is why you say to me as well, and we've talked about this, oh, spirit have left me, my guides have left me. No, they haven't. There is something in you that blocks some kind of belief systems that you're holding on to, that believes that spirit aren't there. Spirit are always there.
You think I speak from experience, that it's kind of human nature, the nature of ourselves, and it to place it outside of ourselves. It is the easier option. We've all experienced that on our journey.
Many times.
Even in clairvoyance areas, always it's my guide, something's off. Well, no, where we should start always is with ourselves,
Absolutely. And this is why, we're not even got into this part of the podcast yet. You've got to know who you're working with. You got to know about, good energy. You got to know about bad energy. And I just want to make that point, because when you listen to a lot of the old tribal teachings, Native American Indians, Aboriginal, and you can listen to a lot of that on podcasts, and they talk about it, and it really resonates with me, because any kind of spirit worker, shaman, whatever we want to call ourselves, is but a label. That everything that happens to us as part of our learning. But life, if you want to work with spirit, it's part of initiation. Everybody wants to learn about, I want to work with the light, I want to work with the angels, and everybody, which is great, which is fantastic. But the universe works dualistically, which means that if you want to learn about the light, you got to learn about the dark.
Yeah.
And we've had to learn that the Purple Mountain. And yeah, it might seem heavy, but it's not. It's part of life's initiation. If you want to work on yourself, you work in your shadow. You're not just the light, but also the shadow. And that's the same with any kind of shaman in the old days, would learn about how to work in the light and learn how to work in the dark. And that is part of, any kind of person that wants to work with spirit. That's part of your experience. That's part of your initiation. Learning about, the dark and the light frequencies that people can tap into, intentionally or unintentionally.
Well, I suppose it's that we've said many times. If you would say I want to work with anybody, then you're going to get anybody. So being discerning of energy,
I call it, and I might come across judging here, and I don't mean to, I call it spiritually lazy.
Yeah.
Is because we're all eager, we're all excited, but, be patient, slow down. You want to develop, for me, you got two options. You can either rush ahead and work with anybody, open yourself up to any frequency and every energy, or two, be patient. It's worth it to slow down, do that inner work. It might take you 10 years, But at least then at the end, you become the channeler that you're meant to be, and it's done right, and it's done properly, and that what you're channeling is correct, that you're not projecting your own stuff in your own messages,
well, that's
in your
very
own healing.
Isn't it? Yeah.
That's mega important. So really, anybody that's listening to the podcast, what's the rush? Don't be spiritually lazy. Stop, look at things. And, you know, and I want to touch upon this point as well, that when you're starting off any kind of channeling, you've got two options really. Try to seek out a good circle or development group, but then there comes challenges behind that as well. But over the years, I've come to realize that I am my own greatest teacher, and that I'm going to develop how I want to develop with spirit. And there's something I know that you're very passionate about as well. When you do your tarot readings and angel card readings, that is between you and spirit. You work the way you and spirit work together. Not that somebody's told you or imprinted on you or indoctrinated in you in a development process. This is how you should and shouldn't work. That's a limiting belief system. So that hinders your growth. So you really want to work and be around people, teachers, that really only empowers you, that teaches you to teach yourself. Because remember, the teacher doesn't teach you nothing that you don't already know. And it's all about remembering, because we all know what's inside of us. The universe inside of us is a vibrant consciousness, an ocean of consciousness. We are the divine. Stop giving all your power away to these people that run these classes and development classes and awareness classes. You are your greatest teacher. Let spirit guide you, support you, hold you, and you do your 50%. So just be very cautious not to indoctrinate yourself into a certain way of learning or teaching, because that's a limiting belief system and that hinders only your growth. And I'm seeing that all the time. And it's very difficult when people come to the Purple Mountain that have been indoctrinated a certain way, because it's very difficult then to unprogram that old way. I love working with people that are a clean slate in a way, because that enables them. And really our job is, I wouldn't even call ourselves teachers, as inspirers, is to empower people to empower themselves, and to see that inside of them is the knowledge, all the universal knowledge, all the answers that they seek. And you see a lot of it where people are saying, spirit told me this, or I'm asking spirit. And I say, and I get frustrated sometimes, because I think, what about going within? What about sitting in meditation and go within? Because inside of you is all the answers that you need. Don't always look up to spirit. You are spirit. You are spirit. And sometimes that it comes probably with people that want to avoid. They're avoiding their own physical life. They don't want to answer their own questions. They want spirit to lead them and support them. But then that opens up to an array of other kind of problems, because who you're really tuning into, because you don't have guides that come through.
So really, is it going to be, you're going to tune into the frequency of where you're at, where you're feeling? So if, say, for example, you have something going on in your life, emotionally, physically, that you're ignoring, that you're running away from, that isn't going to be on a particular high frequency then of what you want to try to tune into.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not to say that there's not going to be those around you, guides and such, but it's free will. You know,
it is free will. And ultimately, if anybody that wants to get into channeling, understand everything in the universe is energy and frequency and vibration. So in spirit, there are hundreds, thousands of different higher frequencies to the darker shadowland frequencies. And within each frequency, there are different guides, different people there on different levels. And it's something we learned very earlier on. Just because you've got a guide coming through wearing white robes and a gold hat and it seems angelic, means that they are there for your highest good. You know, always be discerning, always question. And this is why it's healthy, because questioning, you're not questioning spirit, you're just questioning the energy. It's healthy. It creates your boundaries.
Yeah, 100%.
It creates those healthy boundaries. And people are eager wanting to open up. And just imagine yourself being in an antenna and you're tuning into frequencies. And if there are things within you that you're carrying, what do you think you're tuning into? Now, I am not romanticizing this. I know from my personal experience, if I've had a bit of a crap day and I feel a little bit low and depressed and I want to work with spirit, I know that I'm tuning in with lower frequencies here.
Yeah.
So, and this comes down to my pre-preparation, meditating, looking after myself, taking that work. I'm still doing that inner work on myself. And I will be doing that inner work until the day I'll return home to spirit. That never stops. So just always be mindful. Just stop. What is the energy showing me? What is the energy teaching me? And this is why being curious instead of charging ahead will allow you to really step into that inner lotus flower, your intuition, your heart space, your inner knowing, your inner power. And though they are the voices, they are the energy frequencies that you should learn to tap into first.
Yeah.
Because it's your gut, it's your intuition, it is your heart, it is your inner power, it is the third eye, which brings clarity, your higher knowing. Tap into the body. The body loves when we communicate with it, when we talk to it. Tap into those energy frequencies first, because that will give you the tools that you need to know what is right and what doesn't feel right. And sometimes as a medium, as a clairvoyant, sometimes we do tap into lower frequencies depending what kind of work we are doing.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that there is something wrong with you. And that comes down to what I was saying about the old shamans, the old seers and oracles. They would be initiated not just in the light, but also into the dark.
Yeah.
So it's about holding the light within yourself to navigate through those challenging points and challenging situations that you find yourself into. But a really good technique, if there is a guide or somebody, an ancestor drawing close and that you've never connected with before or seen or felt before, just ask this question. Are you there for my highest good?
Yeah.
Are you there to serve my highest good? Because they have to answer. They have to answer in yes or no. Trust your gut. Trust your intuition. Your intuition is your compass. Your intuition will only ever tell you when something doesn't feel right. And this is why when you first develop, when you first sit with spirit, you see any kind of intuition, your inner knowing is like a rubber band. You got to work at it. You got to use it. And the more you use it, the more you connect with it, the more you lean into it. So when I'm sitting there, and we've experienced this before, we run home circles. It doesn't feel right tonight. Something doesn't feel right. That's our intuition telling us something doesn't feel right. And it's not always through spirit or guide. Sometimes we can accumulate energy. We can bring energy into a space that shouldn't be there. And this is why a great technique about any form of channeling is learning to put your shit to one side.
Yeah.
Learning to back it up and leave it to one side. And a lot of us have to do this. Any mediums that are watching this, we have tough times. We have challenging times. I remember not long ago, you having to go to Blackburn and it wasn't a very nice journey and you were driving. You can either go into that service thinking about all that, or I had to put it to one side.
Yeah.
I am here for me. I'm here for spirit and I'm going to be working. And that is learning about also earthly matters, putting earthly matters to one side when you're working with spirit. Otherwise you could end up projecting and spoiling the frequency that you're working with.
Yeah, that's very important. So sort of leaning away from, we talked about the a lot of on the emotionals and the inner work and guides and such, but it'd be interesting to talk about the mechanics of trance. I mean, we use the word channeling a lot now. More
yeah, we do.
We just prefer it now. It just seems to be right for us. But what would you describe overshadowing? Because this, for me, is an interesting part of development, if we want to call it that, and a part that people will tend to either proceed with or back off from at that point. So what is your interpretation of overshadowing?
Well, my interpretation of overshadowment is that some mediums can develop really quickly, really authentically. Some people would need a little bit more development, but it comes down to trust. And I remember, I'm only sharing personal experiences. I remember when I first started off clairvoyantly, and actually I developed as a trance medium before clairvoyant. And I know you used to come with me in open circles, and I used to just work in open circles. And I used to say to Spirit, right, I want this message before I stand up. And Spirit did. And then they came to a point, no, we're not going to give you anything because you need to stand up and trust us and trust yourself that we're going to be there.
I think a lot of people have experienced
that. And that is really building up a very strong relation. This is how you build up your connection with your spirit team, is to say, can you trust us because we trust you?
Yeah.
It comes both ways. And it amazes me sometimes when, and again, I'm not judging, when mediums are, in my eyes, disrespectful to guides and say, where are you? I need you to be here. If I was your guide, I would say, go away. I'm going to take a step back. So, always show gratitude, always be respectful, not only to yourself and to your spirit team. But overshadowing is the same. And when I developed, I was really lucky because I had a really good circle leaders that really knew what they were doing. And that's important because they empowered me, and I knew I was being overshadowed. I was aware of what was happening, but I felt like I had no control. I allowed it to happen.
So what actually happens during the overshadowing process? How could you describe it for those who are listening who perhaps have never heard of it before?
Well, the overshadowing starts with one simple thing. As you sit in there, a word will come to you.
Yeah.
And in trance, they will say that word out loud. And what's the ego going to say? I'm going to sound stupid.
Yeah.
They're going to be saying something to me. Oh my God, there's no way I can do that. Testing your doubt, testing your trust. Spirit aren't testing you. You're testing yourself here.
Yeah.
Because if you want to work with spirit, you've got to learn these tough experiences. And that voice comes in. Speak the voice. And my personal experiences was my hand was going all funny. The energy in my solar plexus was building and pulling, a lot of pulling in the solar plexus. The crown was opening. I was feeling very physical sensations.
Yeah.
My breathing went deep. And it took me about half an hour to an hour to go off. But Roy and Anita were patient. They knew what was happening. It was just the way that I was developing. So I was very lucky that they were very patient. But then what you've got on the other side, which I know that you're very passionate about, is this is the most delicate time.
Yeah.
Because if you've got circle leaders that say, you're not in trance, whatever's coming through is not right, that can really, really be off-putting. That can stop somebody's work just like that.
Yeah.
And I know we've seen this in other groups. You've got to create a container, patience. It can take years for that possible medium to develop.
Yeah.
So you've got to have the right people around to support that person.
What would you say? And of course, this isn't in judgment. We're just giving an opinion here. We're talking in reality to things that actually go on, that we've experienced or that we've been asked over the years. What would your opinions be when people say, I was sat and somebody came in and I didn't feel I had control?
Well, first of all is you've got to not got to understand, but understand.
Just to rectify that, sorry, spirit. When spirit have come into their body and they said, "Oh, I didn't have." They just came in and I didn't have any control.
No, it really annoys me when people say that. Not annoys me, but I get my back up and I roll my eyes a bit. And I know I'm human. I have my flaws and I have my points as well. But ultimately, it comes down to knowing who you are, trusting, and as spirit are drawing close, it's a partnership. You are allowing that to happen. If you sit in there in a circle and they say, wow, this spirit have just jumped in. No, they haven't. You've allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
And it's learning about self-responsibility.
Yeah.
And also learning if the energy that you don't like, they don't have to come through. You ask them to take a step back. I don't like your energy. You need to step out my aura here.
Yeah.
You remember it's empower, and if you know your own power, you know what you need to do, and you know what energy you're working with or not. But if you're opening yourself up to anybody, anybody's going to come in and take over.
Yeah.
So you are allowing that to happen. Spirit aren't doing that. You are allowing that to happen. And I call that spiritual abuse.
Yeah.
You're allowing yourself to spiritually abuse yourself. Your body, your energy, your field is your sacred space. I want to know who's in my sacred space. And a good telltale sign is how you feel after.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, I feel so drained. I feel so tired. Yeah. Physical or trance mediumship, even after doing a service, you will feel tired sometimes. Energetically, this will comes down to your preparation. But spirit don't drain you.
Yeah.
You drain yourself. You allow yourself. There might be aspects of yourself that you've unhealed. So it all comes down to self-responsibility. No one jumps in. No one takes over. Even mediumistically, when you are doing a service, sometimes when I'm passing on a message, I will say to my guides, they're all coming in too close here. I don't know, maybe you can share a bit of your experience. They're coming too close. Please just take a step back. You're confusing my link here.
Well, for me, it comes back to something we discussed a lot all the time, which is we don't work for spirit, we work with spirit. So many times, and it's come up a lot lately, actually, with people here at the Purple Mountain, where they say, I'm experiencing X, Y, Z. And we'll say, did you just say it's too much? Just say it's too much. You need to back off with that a bit. And that communication, it's like the early start of that bond that's going to move forward. You know, it's like the best friend you'll ever have. And what is needed in any form of friendship and connection, what are the building blocks? Is trust and honesty. Well, and so I'm sure spirit don't sit there and they don't want us to pretend to be something we're not. They've chosen us for that role we have for our true self.
Absolutely.
And this is perhaps where there can be a risk on all our journeys of losing ourselves that way, of thinking we have to be some spiritual guru in a way, for lack of a better word, instead of just be you.
Oh, that's so important. You can't be anybody apart from yourself. Just be you. The good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, all the good side of you, and also the shadow side. That's why spirit have chosen you. That's why you've chosen yourself. It's because of your imperfections. People talk about being perfect. You are imperfect and perfect at the same time.
Well, something else I want to mention as well, because I know we have covered some very important and serious subjects in a way. And it was mentioned actually in a podcast we did with John Hogue, and it reminded me, and it's the importance of actually humour in the work as well. And he was talking about Osho and such like that, teachers, and that they will bring in humour, and not only a way to say, look, I'm just like you, but also to lift the vibrations. There would be a time in our circle where early on, before we were actually in it, it was mentioned that they used to think, should they be laughing or not? But they realised at times there would be laughter, not during trance, but perhaps in the sitting or when they all came together, that it was needed to lift the vibrations, to embrace and enjoy the experience that you are in at that time. It's because that moment, there's not going to be one like it again.
It's part of the journey, isn't it? It's part of the initiation and learning and experiences, the humour. There is the mechanic side of it, the self-development side of channeling is very serious, and there is those serious moments, but also, you know, laughter also sort of changes the frequency and the vibration. It allows us to really use humour as a human way to really let go of our own expectations and have fun as well. Have fun. You know what?
As Albert always says, he always says in many of his talks over the years, and some that have discussed some really deep matters, that he'll say at the end, it's not the end of the world. And I think that's a very good way. You know, sometimes within our minds, we can feel, oh my God, this has happened. And this might be in spiritual work. Oh, I've had a funny service or a funny experience. That's it. I want to quit. It's the end of the world. And he comes in and he's saying, look, it isn't the end of the world. It's just an experience. embrace it.
Well, take a step back from any kind of, if you felt that you've had not a great service, just, look back and say, what has it taught me? Was there lessons that I could have learned? I know a lot of mediums work that way, and I always say, could I have done better? Could I have worked more authentically? And I always look within. Don't put blame on anywhere else.
Well, I think we should never stop asking that, in a way. That could be disagreed, probably, but
I just want.
We're in a privileged position, in a way, because we've always had each other to sort of throw things backwards and forwards to. And I know a lot of other mediums I'll speak to, they'll say they'll have conversations with loved ones on the way home and say, come on, right, let's go through the night. And
spirit like that, spirit like us, talking to them. When we talk about channeling, we're not just talking about channeling in a service or in a circle. We are all channelers in our own special way. We all speak to spirit. And this is why, anybody that wants to develop in channeling, you want to, the sort of the second, third step is, connecting with your loved ones, your grandma, your dad, your mum, your sister, whoever's in spirit. Talk to them. They are there behind the scenes supporting you and guiding you. But I just wanted to make a point before, which really sort of resonates with the question you asked, is that people do tend to be so serious sometimes. And it probably comes from religion, a lot of the indoctrination of religion, particularly in a clairvoyant service, is that spirit are coming, they are on that plane of love and light. They are in that beautiful place. Now they're altering their frequency, and they're coming in and they're looking at everybody, and you're all sitting there, all frowning, all miserable. God, it's a connection. It's a telephone. I call it's a telephone call home. How amazing is that? Smile, laugh. We're going to bring those messages. They're not going to come through and say, well, I'm dead now and in the end of the world. No, they're going to bring those messages that are going to be upliftment, empowering, reminding you in your heart that there is only life after life, that there is no death.
Yeah.
And that is the very heart. What spirit all trying to prove is, have no fear. Fear is an illusion.
We've discussed a lot about the mechanics and what can come up as a sort of part of your learning and rites of passage. But one thing we haven't got to is the actual information that can come through, that can be presented and offered during a channeling or trance sitting or circle sitting. If anybody hasn't experienced trance or channeling, that just on this channel, on the Collective Awakening, we've got some of the videos, particularly an excellent one in my view, that was one of the channelings when you were working with Albert in Chester. And now there's two questions to this, actually. I brought in another one now, because as I'm thinking of that night, it wasn't only the energy brought from spirit and the knowledge, which was incredible, it was the questions that were asked that brought that knowledge through as well. There were some fantastic questions. So what can happen during that sitting, and what kind of knowledge can be brought forward?
Well, there's two parts to that question. I don't know why it's just coming to my mind. If you want to ask spirit a question, and prepare for the answer. So though there are a couple of no-nos that the particular enlightened being won't do, which is they won't dictate, they won't tell you how you should and shouldn't live your life, they don't take your problems away, they don't rescue you. If anything, an enlightened teacher would empower you to find those answers within yourself. What I probably say 90%, maybe even more of the channelings are what we call spiritual knowledge. And I find spiritual knowledge being breadcrumbs, because it gets us to think. What my personal experience, that when I first sat as a sitter, and you got Wakintonka coming through Anita, and I was very inquisitive, I was very nosy, I was very curious, and I wasn't always looking within myself for answers. And I would write questions during the week, and then it used to annoy me, because then on the Friday, on the Saturday, I answered my own questions. And that's when I began to learn that actually some of the knowledge I already knew. And I sat there and I was asking spirit these questions, and they were giving me this knowledge and these teachings that it actually brought me inside of myself, particularly on the big topic of reincarnation, which I've always been very fascinated on. And it got me to question, it got me to ask those questions within myself. It got me to be more curious about life, about the mysteries of life. And I think that's all that Spirit are trying to do. They're not trying to force knowledge or teachings. They want you to ask yourself, what is this knowledge triggering in you? What is this information? How is it nourishing you? Mm-hmm. And this is why sometimes things resonate with us, sometimes we don't. And whatever we don't resonate with, it's okay just to shelve it. Sometimes we'll sit there and think, oh my God, that was very heavy. I've been triggered. I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And then I sit with it during the week and thinking, it does really resonate with me. I can accept it. So all Spirit teachers are trying to do is really get you to look within yourself.
Do you think
that's where the teachings are coming through?
As the same with all higher knowledge or teachings, whether channeled or in the physical here by someone, that they very much tend to be ahead of the time, and it's something that will unfold and we will understand better in the times ahead. It's breadcrumbs.
And we've had a lot of this over the years at the Purple Mountain. There's a lot of stuff we were sort of told knowledge-wise, very early days, 15, 16 years ago. And we didn't understand it at that time. It was quite, Albert talked about recently, mind-blowingly.
It's mind-blowingly
simple and stuff that was being shown to us. But now we're looking back now, 15 years later, we can accept that, we can understand that. And it is, they are the pioneers. It is the teachings that are coming through. And whoever is actually good channelers from around the world are channeling the same information as the part of the collective. You see it in the podcast, you see, across other circles and other centers across the world, in America, in wherever, in Europe, and you're seeing that it is the same message told in different ways.
Yeah.
Because it will resonate with different frequencies and different cultures, different people. And in a way, they are ahead of the time, but ultimately they're there to really inspire us. And talking about, asking questions. Sometimes when I ask questions, I didn't always like the answers. And I know you don't always either. And but they see in us, they see greatness in us that we don't see in ourselves.
But that's showing you really, isn't it, when it's authentic, is that it's not about telling us what we want to hear or playing into our ego.
Oh, you're spot on there.
It's about the truth, and it's like you said, you answer the question, you're only going to get the truth. So you get in it, that's it. And perhaps because it's not tailored to the way things we would like it to sound like, that can be jarring sometimes. In other ways it can, but always nourishing, because it expands us outside of our belief systems.
Absolutely. That's something that I've actually written about yesterday in a pre-recording that I'm currently writing on, part about channeling, that we're not going to get everything right all the time.
Yeah.
When we talk about the word ignorance is actually not a bad word. Ignorance means you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to know.
So many people frightened to say I don't know. Or the other, sometimes when we're presented with some knowledge, it's all right to say, I need to allow time for that to unfold a bit. I don't need to understand it right now fully. I'm just going to put that in my pocket, and I'm going to, something I always say, the proof's in the pudding, see how it goes.
You're not going to get everything right. You're just doing your best. And it takes a lot of courage to put your hand up and say, I've got that wrong. I'm getting that wrong. And so you're absolutely right. We're talking about stuff, not that we read in books, stuff that we have experienced ourselves. I have experienced myself. I've sat there where my ego has been sliced in half. Spirit haven't sliced me in a knife. They've presented me. You're absolutely right, Chris, what you're saying. They presented me with the truth, and it's not what I liked, and actually it deeply humbled me.
Do you think it's as well, when we talk about the sort of these experiences and how jarring they are, not being afraid to say we don't know, it's all part of the expanding and learning, in it, in these circles, and what Spirit could see the source of it, but what I wanted to get to there, is that if you have that experience in person, it's very hard to explain that to somebody outside of that experience.
Well, you have to be very
because they've not experienced it.
You do, and this is where projection happens a lot, because people will say, and teachers who are in this field will say, you have to work in this way. Well, that work has worked for you. You've experienced that, but that might not be the key that's right for that person's development. And this is why you have to be so careful when holding space and creating safe spaces for people to develop. Because, you know, you never come, and also you have a lot where people compare themselves. They say, I want to work, find inspiration from other mediums, but you're only going to channel and work the way you work.
Yeah.
You know, the outside world is a fabulous place, but also is a honey trap.
Yeah.
It can entrap yourself in what people think. Oh, I want to be that person. And you get a lot of it, what I call parrot knowledge, is regurgitated stuff that is already that's already been said. And they're 3 years behind, because they're repeating, and they're not coming from an authentic place. You know, the stuff, the knowledge and the teachings that can come through channeling is absolutely mind-blowingly beautiful. Yeah, if you are willing to take those steps.
And very expansive in its subject matter. It can range from something that's very, very personal to you, that's something more for the earth or the collective, or the understanding the spirit world, the astral planes.
And I find as well, Chris, and I don't know how you feel about that I find that before I sit, that's an important word, before I sit with spirit in channeling, I would, during the week or the weeks before, I would have gone through some similar experiences, knowledge, synchronicities, things that happened to me in my journey, in my initiation, because anybody that's on this path have never had it easy. We've all gone through the initiation process of the hardships of life. And that's given us, as a human being, empathy and understanding what it really feels like, so that when we do channel, when we do give messages, we are talking from a place, I understand. What I'm saying to you, I have experienced as well. And that is a human connection. That's a spirit to spirit connection that's very, very rare.
And big part of why we reincarnate, to experience as well, to have these full experiences so that we're able to speak on them as well. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's sort of sending my mind to the many trance sittings we've had over the years and demonstrations, and it can be very different. And it's interesting what you said, when sometimes there'll be members of a circle or group that might have had a certain experience in the week, or something happening, or certain dreams, and then it's all brought together and spirit come through. And for me, it's what I like to call the sweet spot. It's the totally undeniable that you can try and explain that away all you want. That is absolutely undeniable. It's in the ether, it's in the energy. And for me, it's always a sign that any type of channeling is, I don't want to use the word right, but it's authentic, because it's tapping into an energy. And this was discussed the other evening on another subject. It doesn't sit to the left or the right. It doesn't have, it's not fighting a corner. It's coming in just from truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And you find that as well, particularly when you're channeling in a circle, in a home circle that's run every week or run every other week or every month, and you have dedicated sitters, the sitters are equally as important as the one that's channeling, because you're tapping into an energy frequency, a powerful energy frequency that you're all part of. You're doing collective work, and something that we've all experienced, even in our little place here in Fleetwood, a lot of energetic, stagnant energy that's been lifted, being an old fishing town.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, just before Christmas, we opened up to 2 other groups, and they were picking up the same energy, and they know nothing about the other circle. And for me, that's telling me that we're doing collective work. Yeah. So the channeling is just affirming, confirming what we are sensing and feeling. And at the end of the day, we're human nature. We like confirmations. We like affirmations. Just to say, you know what, a gentle tap on the shoulder to say you're on the right path. Yeah. What you are feeling is right.
Well, another trance medium who we interviewed on this podcast a while back made a point, Rob Goodwin.
Yeah.
And he said, actually, there will always be a confirmation of some kind after. Not that we're always seeking it, but it's like spirit affirming, like you've talked about, this happened, this is being shown. When Albert first started coming through, I remember everywhere we went, we saw him, the books, he was on the TV, and I thought, oh my God, you just got, either I'm going crackers or, you know, you just couldn't make this up. He was absolutely everywhere. Some people, and it can be received, a street name, a song, something that comes on and go, oh my God, this just is aligning.
I just want to share this experience, and I don't know if you remember, but I think it was quite early doors. And we were running our Friday night trance services, and Albert, it still is sort of the main communicator. He's the main channeler for spirit working with me. And there was a lady in the audience, and we discussed all this after in great depth in our circle, like we do. That there was a lady in there who said, "Why will you prove it to me that you're Albert Einstein?" And Albert said, "No." And everybody looked a bit stunned, a bit funny. Well, he said, I can prove it to you. I can give you all the information that you need and want, but you will still not believe. Because it's not, and this, we talked about this, because trance is not as much to say, I've got your father here, I've got your mother, though in trance you can ask about your loved ones.
Yeah, of course. I understand
but that. It's not working from the mental side of mediumship.
Yeah.
It works in a much deeper, heart-centered frequency.
Yeah.
But that in itself is evidence. When you sit there and somebody's coming for a trance reading and we've never connected, and you've got guides coming through and they're telling about that person, about who that person is, and they're sitting there and they're crying and they don't understand why they're crying and they're feeling the touch of spirit, that is evidence.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
There's such, I think when we've fallen into this, having trapped, the movement is entrapped in this obsession of it's all about mental mediumship, about that connection, and the rest of it has been lost and watered down a lot.
Yeah, because when certainly when I first sat in on any with Anita, then I just knew, my gut went. You just know. See, it's learning, not that evidence isn't important, but I believe in the trance process. It's beyond the mental mediumship side, in the sense of it's about a higher vibration of tapping into spirit and linking with that energy, which you should feel. You can feel it. I can feel it. You know, even in the clairvoyant side, as we work this way, you can feel people when how they're working and how they work energetically. So it's coming back to reading energy.
It is, and in a way, and I'm laughing because it's a blessing and it's a great gift, and it's also a curse.
Oh, yeah.
Because I sit there and I'm telling you now, anybody listening, I've had spirit saying, stop judging, you're sitting and sending out. Because if you're judging, you're not sending out. So the best thing you can do is sit and send out your energy, because it quite easily be you. And that, I get humbled all the time. I get humbled all the time by spirit. But I'll sit there and within 2 minutes, I just know if that medium's working with spirit or no. You just know. And it's not always about the power of the evidence. It's the subtle energies, the subtle messages that have been brought forward.
This is what I'm talking about, going beyond that. So there is even though it is part of things, that there's an over obsession with evidence, where you could be sat in a trance circle, and you could be that much looking for evidence that actually you're missing out on the experience in a way, and the energy.
I feel, and I can only liken this with some of my regular clients that come with readings. So this is another different part of the work, because you've got half an hour, 45 minutes with that person. And I love working with I know you do as well. I love working with clients. They've never ever had a message before.
Yeah.
Because you can never ever compare your first ever experience, and they are blown away. They're leaving the center. Oh my God, I've connected with spirit. This is amazing. And then they come back and they expect that same. It is the same, but it's that same feeling's not there. And while there's not much more, the evidence can be brought forward because they've given you the evidence. They've proven to you there's life after physical death. Often at that point, and this is what I look for now, is I know my grandma's there. I know my mum's there. I know spirit are there. I look for more spiritual guidance.
Well, for example,
spiritual support.
You could be given a message, and this is through clairvoyance or trance, where it's brought through, and he said, "You're experiencing this week. You've had very deep dreams about such a subject, and there's been things that you've been experiencing emotionally, perhaps people that you've had to break away from or make decisions, and that for you, you said about you have a knowing of spirit, but it's that that can be as evidential anyway to me, because it's the awareness of what's happening." But for me, that happens a lot in trance, because you go into that deeper level. It's no longer about proving. It's about, we already know, so where do we go from here?
It is about proving, but proving's not the forefront.
Yes.
The proof comes after.
Yeah.
It comes through feeling, sensing, and the breadcrumbs, the knowledge that's been passed forward.
Plus the proof can come, it does come after, in the way things unfold and what you're feeling and sensing and what you experience. So I think it's been very enlightening, and I think it'd be nice to talk about this subject more, because I don't think people are talking about channeling, trance mediumship, altered states. We could call them more than multiple things. Spirit don't mind.
It's for us to understand.
And I think as we talk about it more, it assists people in understanding what these things are, and also removes fear of these things to be experienced, to be enjoyed, but find the right group, find the right people, know who you are.
Things. I just want to sort of, as we come into the end of the podcast, I just want to reaffirm that things on the earth are changing, and I'm not here at one point, judging. I'm coming from the perspective of really challenging. This is what we're here for. We're here to challenge ourselves. We're here to challenge our belief systems, stepping outside the box, doing things differently, working, questioning, being curious. Yes, we need things that ground us, that give us a starting point. We all need that. But do not restrict yourself or allow yourself to be indoctrinated. It's dogmatic.
Yeah.
I'm saying this from a lot of spiritualist perspective. It is not serving the modern, and you see it, the watering down of mediums channeling that really restricts it. The movement has watered down. It has become weakened. Is because something's fundamentally not right, and this is what a lot of our work here at the Purple Mountain is, to challenge that. Is to really empower people to do that inner work on themselves, to serve the modern spirit. Things that worked. There's a lot of things that still work from 200 years ago, but there are things that do not serve the modern spirit. We've had to learn that. You're just not going to get people to commit every single week. Young people, they're busy. They've got loads of other commitments, and we've had to change and tailor things. And it would take more time, but it takes patience.
Things continue to evolve. Like you said, the earth is evolving, we're evolving. So nothing ever stands still for too long. But
no, it doesn't. And it's amazing times. But we've given so much advisement. We could talk about this for another hour.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting. And I hope everybody that's listened to this podcast, this video, has found it nourishing. I will add as well, here at the Purple Mountain, we do offer one-to-one trance readings as well, that they're available in person. If anybody wants to come visit us or get in touch with us about how they work. We also run regular trance groups, trance circles monthly as well, that are done in our circle room. So another opportunity as a group and we also do group trance readings. Trance has been the core for many, many years of our teachings and our learning. So we continue to try and share that with everyone as we've done today. So thank you very much, Stephen.
Thanks for asking me those amazing questions, Chris.
And till we speak again, please share, please continue to support this podcast so we can just reach out to people. And as we've said, everything we've shared today is just our experience, our knowledge. You find what's right for you. Until we speak again, goodbye.
Goodbye.